Museum of the Holocaust. Welcome to our first Facebook Live Holocaust Survivor Talk. This is one of our first talks, so if we have any technical difficulties, please bear with us. We're on it. Our tech team is on it. We'll have everything up and running as well as possible. And today you have the honor and privilege of listening to Gabriella Karin, a Holocaust survivor from Czechoslovakia. She will share her story with you. And afterwards, you'll have the opportunity to type in some questions, and Gabriella will answer some questions. And I'm sure Gabriella will be back doing this again with us, and as well as other survivors in our community. So, Gabriella, we are so honored to listen to your story today.
Okay, thank you. I was just a young girl when the World War II started. I was 8 years old. And before the war, we lived in a peaceful, democratic country, very similar than we are here living today. In our wildest dreams, we could not have imagined what will happen, but it did. On this picture, I was 11 years old. I was such a happy child before that. And as you can see on this picture, I did not smile. Nobody could make me smile. Hard times of the Holocaust. Put the next picture, please. Thank you. I'm showing here my 10-year birthday party. I'm the only one who survived. I lost all my friends, every one of them. Next picture, please. I was 3 years hidden in a convent. I'm a sculptor. I express my feelings in clay. This is about the nuns that were hiding 3 Jewish girls, 2 sisters, and me. This nun here, Angelica, was my teacher. I have her face in my mind. Last year, I received this picture. I recognized her. That was it. This is what I knew how she looked. Next one, please. After the 3 years, the first year, actually, I was in the boarding school. My name was not my name. My birthday wasn't my birthday. I was a different person on papers. I cried myself to sleep every night. My mother came a year later, and when she saw my cried out eyes, my skinny face, she decided for night she will take me wherever she is, and in morning I will come to school. This is what I did next 2 years. My mother was working with the resistance. My parents had a store next to the police station, and because of the location, they knew every policeman. When the deportation started in 1942, it was done by Slovaks, not by Germans. Slovak did all the dirty job. in Slovakia, 90,000 Jewish people lived. From 90,000 people, 60,000 were deported in 1942. From there, 230 people survived. What a terrible number. As you know, 6 million Jewish people died. But alongside, there were also 5 million people. From there were Jehovah's Witnesses, handicapped, gypsies, people with different political views than the Hitler regime. Lot of people who resisted the regime. Altogether 11 million people, 25% of them children, innocent children. 11 million people. Since I'm a sculptor, I made a sculpture about all 11 million people. Very, very sad number. After the 3 years, my mother was very well informed. She knew that Germany will come and occupy Slovakia. We were in complete hiding. Karol Blanar, this is the gentleman you see here, 25-year young lawyer who had it in his heart to hide 8 people. He risked his life and probably the life of his brother and parents. But he did it. And we were there, 8 people, for 9 months. And if you can imagine yourself for 9 months, sitting on a chair, not be able to move around and not be able to speak. We had to be absolutely quiet. The building where we stayed was in the center of the city of Bratislava, across the street of the Slovak Gestapo. You can see the building here on the right of you. This is the building when we stayed. On the left, Slovak Gestapo, Rinková Garda. And we were there for a long 9 months. When the Germans occupied Slovakia, they went from house to house, from apartment to apartment. And the only house they never entered was this building. This building was built in 1935 in the democratic Czechoslovakia. And in the building bylaws was written, no Jew can live in this house. And they must have known about it because this was only house they never entered. And we were there for 8 months, for 9 months, 8 people. Well, what I was doing for a long 9 months, sitting on a chair, not be able to move around. Karol Blanar brought me books to read, and I was reading. Whatever I got into my hands, these were history books, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy. I was 13-year-old and I was reading about the wars that were done. And in my mind, it gave me a hope. Every war finished. This will be over one day. Karol Blanar. He received from Yad Vashem, but the largest Holocaust museum in the world in Jerusalem, and gives an honor to non-Jewish people who helped Jewish people to survive. This, what you see here, is the certificate of honor as the righteous person among the nations. His parents are mentioned there also because they were hiding my grandmother. Thank you. Can go to the next one, please. Karol Blanar, after liberation, he was writing about against communism. And when the communists took over, he had to flee the country. We got a word that he made it over the border, but then we lost track. When I became an adult, I was looking for him. I was hoping I can see him and thank him for the life he let me live. I looked through the organizations. I looked through every phone book I could put my hands on, but I did not find him. I got my first computer about 15 years ago, so I Googled him. He didn't come up. Then I was kind of remembering he had a brother, a younger brother. So I put his name in, Vincent Blanar, and he came up. Vincent Blanar, a university professor. He wrote about 25 books. His telephone number, his address, everything was there. I hardly could believe my eyes. I went to the phone. I did not look if it's midnight there or what. I was so excited. I called Vincent Blanar. He picked up his phone, and I'm trying to introduce myself. And he says, I remember you. Oh, okay. Just tell me, where is Karol? Well, Karol lived in Dublin, Ohio. He got married, no children, but he died in 1980. So here I was, years and years later, missing the opportunity to thank him for my life. So I asked him, where is he buried? This is the only chance I can do to visit his grave. And he had no idea. This time, the communist occupied countries and the free world could not communicate, so he did not know. I called up every cemetery around Dublin, Ohio, and I did not find him. One day, a gentleman approached me and said, I'm very good finding people like that. Just give me some details. So I sent him everything what I know, and he found him the next day in Columbus, Ohio, in an unmarked grave, a person who saved 8 people's life, got the honor as the righteous person among the nations, and did not have his name on his grave. I called the cemetery and I asked them, what happened? 35 years, some later, they looked through the books. They told me nobody was there when they buried him, only the priest. Nobody paid. That's it. I said, no, that's not it. I'm ordering a marker right now. And I want to have written on it, righteous person among the nations. And when they were putting the marker in the earth, I went there with my grandson, Dad, with his video camera. And if you want to hear my goodbye speech, go on my website, GabriellaKarin.com, and you can listen to it. This sculpture, what you see here, is about my hiding. You see the German boots marching in front of the house? There, the people who are with me, my mother and my father, and I was the only child to my parents, my aunt, 2 uncles, and 2 friends of my parents. And I am there, sitting, reading. Karol Blanar, bringing us food. He couldn't bring too much. Everybody was watched. We were hungry all the time. Next, please. Our last possessions. First, they took away from us our citizenship. And then they took away our jobs, and then our apartments, and then they took people to the camp. And they arrived by the train. The first thing what they took away was the last thing from home, their small luggage. Next, please. 12 windows to the unforgettable past. The first window shows the swastika coming, but the world was silent. Next window shows the Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass, November 9, 1938, all over Austria, Germany. They were breaking into Jewish store windows, throwing out merchandise on the street, and burning religious objects, burning. They were hundreds of Jewish synagogues burned, 1,000 put on fire, and they started to take Jewish men to camp. That was the beginning of Holocaust. 9 months before World War II started, and there was a window of opportunity to let children out from Germany, Austria, Czechoslovakia, and Poland. Children from age 2 to 17. And I was going from museum to museum, and there was not a word about it. And it bothered me. And I decided to do something. I made a sculpture. As you see here, I have about 64 trains. In the window of the trains, there are children, photographs. The very first one is Michelle Gold. As you know, she is our board chair today. And this is her mom, Rita. We have about 600 faces in this sculpture. I was going overwhelmed with corresponding to people, emailing, when Michelle approached me and asked me, "Do you need help?" And I said, "What? Yes." Say, "Okay, tell me what to do." And said, "Well, all the correspondence, all the pictures, what I need." And she worked so hard until we finished my sculpture. We looked at each other. We had so much material gathered, correspondence, life stories of these children. Michelle brought this educational book, Memories That Won't Go Away. On the right side, you see Michelle picture. Left side, it's me. I am the illustrator. Michelle is the author. And this is the book, educational book, Memories That Won't Go Away. Next, please. Now go back to my first, next. Go back to the 12 pictures, please. Okay. Can we go back? Not? Okay. Oh, here it is. As you see, bunk beds. Then the next one has starving prisoner. Next is death march, forced labor, silent scream. A child is leaving, mother hand cannot reach it. Gate of Auschwitz, written on it. Arbeit macht frei. The work makes you free. What the irony behind these gates. I'm going every year. Not this year, unfortunately. For March of the Living, with about 220 students. It's a wonderful, wonderful trip. We have young people, about 220, going to Poland for a week, marching from this gate to the other part of the camp, Birkenau. We meet there about 15,000 high school students from 70 countries. We march together in a complete silence. It's awesome. I don't have words to explain it. You have to be there. And we go from one camp to another with a historian explaining what was going on. And then we fly to Israel, where we can breathe again and see the new country for a week. It's an unforgettable experience. I was already 8 times, and hopefully a couple of more times. Okay, next time. Next, please. Yes. This is railroad tracks going to gas chambers. Go back, please. One more. Okay, I will just say it. There is a picture where all the wedding rings are collected because we lost everything as Germans, as they are precise. They created and cataloged everything. And the last one is a mountain of Jewish stars, mountain of dead people. And from all this horror came out State of Israel. And I had there a cactus. You know why a cactus? Everybody who is born in Israel is called Sabra. And Sabra is the fruit of cactus. Prickly outside, sweet inside. This picture, this sculpture shows it's after liberation. The trains started to come back home with survivors. We went every day to the railroad station, looking for a familiar face. We could not recognize people. People looked like skeletons. And I was standing there, a young girl. And I was thinking in myself, Hitler did not get my body, and he will not get my soul. I will smile, and I will be happy. And I am. Next. This is my family. 75 people who were killed in Holocaust. I am using a falling leaf because a leaf that is falling down from a tree is not alive anymore. And I wrote names of my family members, 75 of them who were killed in Holocaust. And after that, I made a sculpture. It's 9 feet tall. The leaves are falling. The whole thing is rotating. The light is coming through. I call it shimmering leaves, perished families. Today it stands in University of Laverne in their interface new gorgeous building in Ludwig Center in their entrance, greeting people. This is a sculpture that I did for today. This is the Holocaust. Next. So this is the past. This is the present. Stop the hate. And this is the future. Children around the globe holding hands. Let's make it a better world for all of us. We can do it together. Let's do it. All of us who listen to me. Let's make it a better world. Let's be nice to each other. And we don't have to love everybody, but respect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gabriella. We have a couple of questions. First question I would like to ask from one of the members of our audience. When did you begin speaking about the Holocaust, and what made you decide to share your story with the world?
Actually, it started in, I think it was in 90s. It was a trial in London. David Irving was on trial. He was a denial of Holocaust. And I got very upset. And I thought maybe I should show something visual. There is so much written word about it. And this is when I started to make sculptures about Holocaust. Together with that, I started to talk about it. So this is when I started. And I think everybody from a different little point felt we have to speak up.
And we have a question from one of our museum volunteers, Jeff Eisenstadt. He would like to know, at what point did you discover your creative and artistic pursuits, and what does it mean to share your art with others? And do you consider it a form of healing?
I was a fashion designer all my life. I retired. I was home 3 weeks. Then I decided I go back to school because I had no idea how to work with clay. And first I did very innocent things, lovers, children at play, until it developed to the Holocaust thing. So this is how it happened to me. I don't know other people, but
Is there something you remember your parents ever saying to you when you were a young girl that helped you be a little less fearful? And how did you work with the fear and sadness as a girl?
I cried. I cried a lot. I cried myself to sleep every night. I cannot cry. I was 13 when I was standing by my grandmother's grave. She died. I loved her. She lived with us. And everybody was crying around me, and I couldn't cry. And since then, any sadness, no tears are coming.
Do you remember anything that your parents said to you during all this when you were still with them? Can you remember anything they might have told you to try to comfort you or give you a sort of solace?
I kind of knew what was going on. Maybe because my mother was working with the resistance. So at home it was not a secret. I knew I cannot talk about it. They told me, it will be over one day. That I was worried. I was worried about them, about myself, and about my family. They were very sad times.
And I know you mentioned reading the books you would read when you were in hiding. Do you remember any other ways that you were able to remain stable during this time? Was there anything else that you might have done to keep your mind off of the tragedy around you?
Just the reading. The reading took away my thoughts. I was reading 14 hours a day, but, occupied me quite a lot.
I know you mentioned hope a little bit. What and that your parents told you that this will eventually be over. Was there anything else that you remember giving you some sort of hope during all those years?
The only hope that I mentioned already about that I was hoping every war will be over, that kind of inspired me. And this game, was over too. Like what we have today, it will be over also. We just have to wait it through at home.
Um, how were you liberated, and what was your first experience leaving your hiding place after all those months?
You have to understand, we were liberated by the Russians. Not American, not English. Russians, they're very barbaric. The first troops that went through Bratislava were beautiful elite groups. This went over, terrible what came after. They thought they have all the right to rape the women. They were years and years on in the war fighting, and they have all the rights to do anything they want. Rob the stores. Like we came to our store, it was completely demolished. No merchandise. Everything gone. Everything thrown on the floor, broken. So we were really afraid to go on the street. And actually, what happened, we went last days of the war when they were bombing, the Russians were bombing 24/7. They took like 10 blocks, every house got hit. And then after, they came and they occupied this territory. So they didn't fight house to house. I remember we were on the third floor hidden. My father said, let's not go down. There is a chance that the Germans will come back. So Everybody was in the cellar, but we were on the third floor. 24/7, bombs were falling. This house was 5 stories high. The whole house was moving. It's like a constant earthquake. It's absolutely unbelievable, terrible. And I was asking every couple of hours my father, shouldn't we go down? Look, the Germans are leaving, everybody's running away. He said, not yet, they can come back. We don't know. But 7 days later, my father said, let's go down. First time after 9 months, he opened the door. I was on the stairways when a bomb flew next to our window, did not explode. A shrapnel flew inside the room. My father was the last one leaving. 2 feet behind him, the shrapnel flew inside there. Didn't hit him. He always said, you see, I knew when it's the last minute. So then we went downstairs. We were there about a week. Finally, we decided we go back to the apartment. Because in the cellar, it was terrible. 100 people there sitting. So we go upstairs. And 2 young soldiers, around 19-year-old, came up, Russian soldiers, and around me. My father was trying to distract them. What do you want from her? She's 10-year-old. And I was 14. You don't look like 10 when you are 14. And he had a petroleum lamp. Nobody had electricity in the whole town. So he was trying to give it to them. Go away with this. With the Russian and Slovak, we could little bit communicate. Suddenly, my uncle came back from the camp. It was about a week after. He was not too far in a camp in Slovakia still. Then he saw what's going on. He ran downstairs, brought all the men upstairs. And suddenly I see everybody in the doorway, or the men. Anyhow, the Russian left. Nothing happened to me. But it was scary. My mother got a nervous breakdown. She couldn't stop crying for days. Anyhow. So this is how it was.
We have 2 more questions. Do you still like to read? And if so, what kinds of books?
I like to read a lot. I like to read about other Holocaust survivor stories. And many non-fictions and fictions.
And can you talk about how you started a family after the Holocaust ended?
Well, we got the store back. We didn't have an apartment. My mother, it took about 6 weeks until she found something, an empty apartment. So we stayed still with Karol Blanar. We didn't have where to go. Actually, we were homeless, but, right? So we moved in this empty apartment. Slowly got some furniture. The store back. No merchandise. Nobody had merchandise. The wholesaler didn't have merchandise to give us. We got yeast from the wholesaler that we could exchange with the people in this farmers market. They came out to the city, and this was the great thing because we could get eggs for it and all kind of produce because they could bake bread. So it was pretty hard. Money wasn't worth anything. Only exchanging thing worked beginning. So this is about the situation. It took a long time until it became more or less normal.
And how did you meet your husband?
How did I meet my husband? Okay. I should have known him all my life because my mother's first cousin and his aunt were married. And we visited there. My husband used to spend vacation there. They lived about an hour from the town where we lived, from Bratislava. We never met. He was the cousin of my mom, was 50-year-old, and he had birthday. So he invited both sides of the family. And me, age 17, I decided I'm not going. It was last day of my vacation. I have plans with my friends. I found every excuse that you can give to your parents. Nothing helped. So pretty upset I was going. And I was right. They were only old people, most of them. I was sitting there in a corner, and suddenly I see a nice young man walking through the dance floor with a coffee mug in his hand, trying to balance it. That was our eyes met. 64 years marriage developed from this moment. That's my meeting my husband. 9 months later, we got married.
Well, thank you again so much, Gabriella, for sharing your story. It's again such an honor for everyone to listen to you, and we're so thankful that in these circumstances you're still able to share your story with the world. So again, thank you so much for everything that you do for our community and for the talk you just gave this afternoon. To our audience, I know Gabriella will be sharing her story again in the coming weeks. We will also have other Holocaust survivors be sharing their stories on Facebook Live. You heard Gabriella speak about her sculpture and illustrations for our museum board chair, Michelle Gold's book about the Kindertransport. We invite you to join us tomorrow, Tuesday at 11 a.m. for a program on the Kindertransport that will be moderated by Michelle Gold. And joining will be Barbara Winton, daughter of Sir Nicholas Winton, who arranged for the rescue of 669 children from Czechoslovakia, and Amanda Susskind, the regional director of the ADL Los Angeles, whose father, Charles Susskind, was one of the children rescued by Winton. And please follow our Facebook page and our website for more information on our upcoming programs. You have our Facebook page if you're watching this. And our website is www.lamoth.org. Again, lamoth.org. Thank you so much for your attention, and thank you again, Gabriella.
Bye bye.